Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 2021 My Team Career Mode. This is episode number 110 today for the Canadian Grand Prix in Season 7. And if you guys did miss the previous episode at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one. You know, the videos are coming thick and fast, every other day pretty much, so you may be missing out on the previous episodes if you haven't been keeping up. And Azerbaijan was a real spicy one, a surprising one as well, because I didn't really expect the race to go the way it did, where pretty much it was myself versus Gasly on our own in like a different level to everyone else. But that's because we were both on a very alternative strategy on the medium tyre at the start of the race, so the clean air just paid its dividends and everyone else was too busy fighting each other. And in the end of it, well, we come to Montreal now licking our wounds a little bit by losing the race win, our first race win of the season, to our teammate Pierre Gasly on the last lap of the Grand Prix. Frustrating to lose it in that way, but, showed the caliber that Gasly had. Obviously, chose a different strategy and it paid out for him. And also, finally, now we're kind of seeing a more comfortable Pierre Gasly in our car. After that initial struggle, it looks like he's now finally up to speed. And, well, he's made up for that disappointing Monaco Grand Prix DNF in the biggest fashion ever by bouncing back with a win. Even though I say, licking my wounds, though, coming into this episode, it was still a great race for us as a team, of course. 1-2, can't get away from that. So a commanding lead in the Constructors' Championship in a season that's been so fine, with teams, 3-4 teams separated by 10 points as a whole. So for us, myself and Gasly to carve our way through all of that is very impressive indeed, and good stuff for, as the team boss. But as an individual driver, of course, annoying and frustrating once again to see one of our teammates winning the first race for the team in this season. But it's just the way it goes sometimes. We could have easily won that one. Kind of, what could have been maybe if we chose a different tyre compound, or just the tyre where it didn't affect us as much as it did for Gasly on that different compound, the harder compound. It's time to reset though and go again then for the Canadian Grand Prix weekend, and this is a sprint race round here in Season 7. So we've got a 25% race coming up, plenty of action, overtaking is not, difficult around here. The DRS, the slipstream on the game, really encourages it. So it's going to be quite an exciting sprint race, I think, and short qualifying, of course. So everyone has just one session to line up on the grid. So the first flying lap, we begin. Bit of traffic ahead of us with the Ferrari and the Lotus Renault. Thankfully, we're able to pass Carlos Sainz on the way as we go into the hairpin, trying to get the best exit possible. And then it's a long run, and obviously there's going to be plenty of action down this straight. And then we have to try and get the braking as perfect as we can into the chicane. Difficult, though, to kind of spot where you're braking. Shut the car in very close to the Wall of Champions on the right-hand side. And then the shortest run to the line on the right-hand side across it for us. That first run, not particularly quick, though, so we're going to have to go again. Obviously, as per usual with qualifying, I kind of heat up as we go on through the laps, kind of get dialed in to the circuit, and even more so in short qualifying. There's no 3 sessions for me to get up to speed. It's just 1 session, 3 laps. Here we go. So we're here on the second run. First sector, purple. Second sector, much better, though. Although that was the green sector, I actually felt we gained more time in the second sector than the first sector. You saw she was able to rotate the car so much better in that flowing middle section and gain a decent amount of lap time there. Gasly in P7 at the moment, but we will go again because everyone will go for another run, and Gasly will now go up to provisional pole. So off the back of his first race win for the team and in this season, he's looking confident there on provisional pole right now, but people are going quicker and quicker, and we're going down the order in a flash. We're down to P6 now, it is, with Russell in P7, Verstappen just ahead of us in P5, Leclerc in the Porsche P4, Hamilton up in P8 in the other Ford. So both Ford Performance GP cars looking very solid through the last corner. We've not gained time. We've lost it. It's been a howler of a last lap. What's happened here? Verstappen at the end of it grabs pole position away from Pierre Gasly, and we are left scratching our heads in P9. Everyone else was improving. Well, a large majority were improving their lap times in the third and final run. I did not. The track went away from me. I went red sector, every sector, and you saw by the time we got to the last sector, there wasn't even that much time I could even find really to make up for the first 2 sectors, which were quite minimal though, because it was only about 1,000th or something like that into the hairpin that I was down on my second lap. So baffling times for us down in P9 with Gasly on the front row. The Ferraris looking a lot stronger this weekend for some reason, so maybe a bit of an uptick for them in terms of focus and just maybe just the car are working better at this circuit. Antonio Giovinazzi ever consistent in P4, but Verstappen steals the show for Ford on pole position. Hamilton P11, so clearly the Ford's going well for us P9, making up to do tomorrow in the sprint race.
We're back once again beside the St. Lawrence River here in Montreal for the Canadian Grand Prix. The event first moved to a variant of this track back in 1978. It was won by none other than Gilles Villeneuve, the first Canadian to ever win his home race, and in whose honour the circuit would be renamed. If you want flat-out racing, you've come to the right place this weekend, as it's full throttle for 59% of this 2.7-mile circuit, peaking at around 210 miles per hour going into the final chicane. But that speed requires discipline, and there are more than a few close walls here just waiting to punish drivers with a heavy right foot. With me today, of course, is Anthony Davidson. Can I get your take on Haas? What do you make of their performance so far this season?
Well, the atmosphere within that team seems very positive at the moment. Everyone seems like they're in great spirits and having a lot of fun doing what they do, and that's definitely contributed to the performances we've seen.
It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. Young superstar Max Verstappen starts from pole position, with Pierre Gasly alongside. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Sainz, Giovinazzi, Daniel Ticktum and Leclerc, Ocon, Drugovich, the owner driver and Lewis Hamilton, Joe, Stroll, Lando Norris and Lundgaard, Bottas, Mick Schumacher, Yuki Tsunoda and Marcus Armstrong. Ireland, Russell, they've taken a grid penalty, Aitken and Nobuharu Matsushita. And now it's time to head down to the track.
So coming away from that Saturday here in Montreal, just with a lot of confusion, really. You know, it's one of my favourite circuits on the F1 game and in real life, and we've always gone well around here in the F1 games as of late. So I just don't know what happened on that final run. We just couldn't find the lap time that other people were finding on that final run. I don't know, it just came towards them and the track fell away from us. And annoyingly, the man who beat me to a race win last episode on the very last lap is the one on the front row alongside the pole sitter Verstappen, so got some making up to do. It's a sprint race though, so it's going to be high octane action, and we've not got the same amount of laps to try and make up for it. 18 laps around Montreal. Coming up, we go to 5 red lights for the Canadian GP sprint race. It's an electric start from Felipe Drugovich and the Red Bull Honda into turn 1. Slow for us, Guan Yu Zhou with a big dive bomb, and he's sideways. We narrowly miss making contact with a T-bone collision with him as we stamp on the brake pedal. And we've got an illegal overtake on Lance Stroll, allegedly, because I think he just got ahead of us as Guan Yu Zhou spun round and the full course safety car is out. We're down to P11 though, so we've gone backwards at the very start of this sprint round. The safety car will help us to bunch back up, and I believe Lance Stroll may have got damage on Esteban Ocon and myself in that altercation, because I think his left-hand side of the front wing was off, so we may get back up into P10, but pretty much the opposite of what we wanted there. Carnage at turn 1, but it kind of was to the detriment of us as Guan Yu Zhou got an electric getaway, then just such a silly, clumsy dive bomb down the inside, way too audacious. I could kind of see that from a mile off, and we kind of backed out of it to make sure we could, assess the situation as we came at it, and I'm thankful we did, because if he went quicker into turn 1, I would have just hit the back of the Williams car, and that could have been our sprint race over. And confirmation there, Lance Stroll did get damaged, so we're up into P10 now on the restart on lap number 3. There's still opportunities in this race to make up positions. We've got, theoretically slower cars ahead of us that we can try and overtake, but, we didn't have the pace on Saturday, so I'm kind of second-guessing myself if we do have genuinely the pace to maybe bridge the gap back up to Pierre Gasly. Right now, though, first and foremost, can we get past the Ferrari? Haven't seen Ocon really too much this season so far. Obviously, was in a somewhat technical championship battle with us as we send one down the inside of him. Last season, that Ferrari was so much better for him. 3 wins. He won at this very location at the full Canadian Grand Prix in Season 6. And, well, today, it seems like Ferrari seem to be improving, so maybe that just shows the Ferrari just enjoys the Montreal circuit for whatever reason in the game and seeing an uptick in performance. But at the moment, as we weaved around to break the slipstream, the Ferrari now is under pressure from Lando Norris there as the Brit sends it down the inside in the Vodafone McLaren Mercedes car and gets up into P10. Ocon now wrestling the car to maintain position ahead of Christian Lundgaard. Meanwhile, George Russell fighting Valtteri Bottas down the order, P14 to 15. They make a bit of contact. It's very close, but Russell gets the move. Safety car, though, is out for the second time in 5 laps because the BMW Sauber has retired. I believe it's just a mechanical failure retirement, and they just parked it in an awkward position, so that's what brought out the second safety car. So that means that the timing of this is so awkward because this is the crossover point in, you know, lap 5 to lap 8 where we'd all be making our pit stop naturally. So everyone is in, and we have to double stack with Pierre Gasly. So it's not a true double stack, but you can see there I did get delayed a little bit, and it's really slow to get away. It's a 3-second pit stop, so even the pit stop itself is pretty poor, but we got held up a tiny bit. So we come out then in P10 behind Hamilton. Sainz is now down from P4 to P8, and this is a replay then. So whilst this was going on, whilst I was in the pit lane, look at this. Lance Stroll and Guan Yu Zhou, the two drivers that had incidents on lap 1, they pit under the first safety car and went on to the medium tyres that will get them through to the end of the race. Well, ironically, it's paid out dividends for them because now the Canadian Lance Stroll leads his home race in the Porsche Formula 1 car, and we've got Guan Yu Zhou, the man who was sideways at turn 1. He's up into P2 ahead of Verstappen, Gasly, Giovinazzi, Ticktum, Leclerc, Sainz, Hamilton, myself, Lundgaard, just outside the top 10. But, you know, all those drivers that I've just named, all of them, they were fighting for the top spots. They're now fighting for the spots they were fighting for, +2 because of Lance Stroll and Guan Yu Zhou, who've somehow finessed this entire situation, and they're up there in first and second. Whereas on the flip side, losers would be Esteban Ocon, you know, Felipe Drogovic getting pushed down the order with those awkward double stacks with everyone pitting as we now get ready for the second restart in 7 laps here at the Canada Sprint. We've had more safety car laps than racing laps, so here we go, green again, and we're going to try and catch Hamilton napping to turn 1. It's going to be oh so fine on the right hand side. We couldn't quite find the room to go fully through down the inside, but on the exit at turn 2, can we go the long way round, squeeze Hamilton, go back to racing line? Hamilton's got it all crossed up, and Hamilton's on the grass. Christian Lundgaard, though, has managed to undercut us on that racing line and get up into P9, but in disbelief for what I've just seen there, Lewis Hamilton, his AI really has lost it, hasn't he? Because he just lost it on the grass. That was a simple case of just making sure you brake at the right time, and you'll probably do well to defend against me or block me off on the racing line. We try to, you know, obviously squeeze him and then go back to the racing line. I thought he'd go wide, but not this wide. He just went onto the grass. That's absolutely unbelievable. That is probably one of the silliest bit of AI driving I've ever seen, because I knew he would go deep. That was the whole point of squeezing him, to make sure we get the switchback move basically from left to right to overtake him. But little did I think he was going to go just straight onto the grass and lose all the position. So it's a horrible day for many drivers, it would seem, here at Canada. Hamilton down to P20. Meanwhile, his teammate Verstappen tries to overtake the Williams car with no success. We're trying against Christian Lundgaard, and again, like Verstappen, no success on the inside or the outside, proving difficult to overtake drivers into the final chicane. Can we now go into turn 1, though? Big dive on the Lotus Renault for the 3rd time now, trying to overtake this guy. We go too wide, though, at turn 1, and now George Russell, our old teammate from last season, is on our tail end. At the moment, this Canadian sprint race is proving quite difficult. I genuinely don't have the pace just to carve through these cars. You know, usually I would think Lundgaard would be a slam dunk easy overtake, but he's doing really well. I mean, props to him as well. It's not just me. He's driving very well indeed, and we just can't get past him. He close up with the DRS there, and then make a mistake on the exit. Rear end snaps, and now George Russell's on our tail end, and with how close the grid is this season, you make a mistake, and you get punished for it. We're now side by side with Russell, defending him into the hairpin for one measly championship point right now. 10 laps in, 8 laps to go, over halfway gone of this sprint race. It's gone by in a flash, and we're now outside the points. Russell, it's a drag race, bit of contact made, tyre wall to tyre wall there, no love lost between two former championship rivals and teammates in the seasons gone by, but we're able to maintain the P10. Meanwhile, Lance Stroll is maintaining P1, but Verstappen is past Guan Yu Zhou. We didn't see the overtake live, but Verstappen has made the move. I assume it was a simple overtake, to be honest, up into P2 eventually with DRS. Gasly, our teammate now, is the next one up for Guan Yu Zhou to defend against. Meanwhile, we're still trying to overtake Christian Lundgaard and the Lotus Renault the long way round. It's a very awkward sequence of corners as we make a late lunge. Bit of contact made with Lundgaard, bit of contact made with the curb, but we actually managed to do that overtake and come out with no damage. And on the same lap, on the same straight, Gasly also made a similar move, not as maybe chaotic on the entry of the apex, but he did go around the outside of Guan Yu Zhou to get up into P3. But there's a quite a considerable distance there from P3 to P9, and we've only got 6 laps to go. So we're going to be losing more further points to Pierre Gasly, and I'm starting to get into a bit of disbelief really at what's going on, because at the start of the season I thought I had Pierre in my back pocket, and now he's just beaten us to a win and he's thoroughly thrashing us in terms of pace in this race at one of my favourite circuits. It's basically in my backyard. This is one of the races that I can always nail down as somewhere to be good at, but it's just not working for us. Meanwhile, further up the road, Giovinazzi going for the move on the slower Williams car, down the inside, can't quite make it, has to back out of it, and he's backed into Dan Ticktum, who now has damage, I think. There's a front wing off, a bit of an end plate fence off for the Red Bull car, and the Red Bull is now holding up Leclerc in the Porsche, and also Carlos Sainz. He's so slow through the first 2 turns there. Giovinazzi, he was just minding his own business, backing out of the fight with Guan Yu Zhou, and has inadvertently affected the guys behind him. Ticktum holding up Leclerc and Sainz to no end, and now we're arriving on the scene. Can we try and get through? It's awkward though, because I can't just send it down the inside. We're kind of being boxed in here by Leclerc and Sainz, who is also being held up then by that Red Bull, and we're literally boxed in right now behind Leclerc, and that gives some space opening up to Lundgaard maybe on the left hand side. The Lotus is round, and we're getting held up even more because Leclerc overtook the Red Bull, but then the Red Bull backed Sainz into me at the apex, so we've just lost positions. We're down to P10. This really is giving sprint race vibes because it's so chaotic as we're now side by side with Lundgaard trying to defend him. We narrowly missed hitting the back of Sainz there at the hairpin. We've got DRS open. Can we overtake the Ferrari whilst the Red Bull comes in? He's going to hold him up into the final corner. We slingshot through. The Brit is into the pit lane. We've had a pretty poor exit though, because we got held up by Sainz being slow, and that invites Lundgaard in for pressure. We lock up at the front left tyre. We just about manage to maintain position. Now can we try and get our head down and overtake Sainz in these dying laps? And this was a replay whilst that was all happening. Then we'll follow on this battle for P1 because Verstappen just sent it around the outside of Lance Stroll. The Canadians lost P1. Gasly's in the mix. It's 3 wide. It's our car versus the Ford versus the Porsche. Look at this. What a spectacle this is at Montreal. 3 abreast into the hairpin, and they continued it the whole way round. It's now somehow Pierre Gasly versus Verstappen for P1. Gasly gets to the inside to defend. Verstappen's too busy defending Lance Stroll. So out of all of that, on lap 13, whilst I was obviously having that squabble with the Red Bull and the Ferrari, etc., etc., at the sharp end, Pierre Gasly was getting up into first place. So our teammate leads another Grand Prix somehow. I was not expecting that. I thought this whole time Verstappen was the one who was going to seal through into the win, because I knew that Ford would be quicker than Stroll in the Porsche. Stroll just not that quick, obviously, compared to his teammate Leclerc, as we go sailing round past Carlos Sainz on the left-hand side. But yeah, I thought Verstappen was nailed on for potentially an amazing historical win for Ford and his first win in a long time. But no, Pierre Gasly has stolen the show with that 3-wide moment whilst Verstappen was battling Stroll, and he's just smashed and grabbed this race lead. Meanwhile, behind us, we've got some infighting between Lundgaard and Drogovic Drogovic. Lundgaard falling away now. Drogovic up into P10 for one measly point for Red Bull Honda, just behind George Russell in P9. Meanwhile, Giovinazzi in the other Lotus Renault, Lofty, he's up into P3. So Giovinazzi's overtaken Lance Stroll as well to get onto a podium. So Giovinazzi just got his head down, a long graft, and eventually has been rewarded with a third place podium here. But the biggest grafter today has been Pierre Gasly, somehow just, stuck behind everyone and waited for the right opportunity, the right time on lap 13 was it, to get across the line to win the Canadian sprint race today. It's 2 back-to-back race victories for our teammate, the Frenchman, and we're down in P7 here, just wondering where on earth our pace went in that race. That is a blow. That is a heavy blow. I'm annoyed. How? He stole the race win away from us last episode, and he's gone on to win this one. How?
That's it then for another magnificent Canadian Grand Prix, and they've hung on to take a sublime victory here today. Anthony Davidson, a resounding victory today. What set them apart from the rest?
It was a question of right place, right time today. We were looking at an entirely different race before the safety car came out, but they were able to take full advantage after the field had been bunched up.
Welcome then to the podium, our top 3 drivers. What a great effort from them today in a very difficult race.
I think you guys can agree it took a while, a little bit of a slow burner, but now this rivalry with Pierre Gasly in the F1 game, and on this game specifically, has now finally heated up because I'm left baffled. He's won 2 races in a row now. I don't know how this today happened. Last episode, fair enough. He had the right tyre choice. But where was our pace today? Where was it? And, just shows also Gasly really has got to grips with our car, because that was a punchy overtake, to be fair to him, on the outside of that 3-wide move with Verstappen and Stroll. Yeah, madness in this sprint race there, with Stroll still getting a very high P4 ahead of his teammate Leclerc. Guan Yu Zhou P5 featuring the top 5 after a long while for Williams Jaguar, and Giovinazzi and Verstappen, ever the 2 consistent men in this championship, get another load of podiums. And so it means Pierre Gasly takes the lead of the Drivers' Championship by 10 points. Giovinazzi in second, Verstappen third, myself in fourth, 16 points off Pierre. We need an answer to it, but whether we're going to get one, I don't know. Next time round, I believe it's Austria. Now, that's always a very difficult race because slipstreaming is so easy around there. So it's pretty much yo-yoing out until the last lap of the Grand Prix. So it's tough, man. It's like this grid is so fine. You can't allow mistakes. And unfortunately, we are making a few mistakes here and there. And just today, we just didn't have a tidy race, was it? And the race pace just wasn't there. Whereas Gasly did have a tidy race. He had a very, patient one to wait for that right opportunity to overtake those 2 cars for P1. And he's got the championship lead for it. So, yeah, interesting times then. Very interesting times in this season so far. Guys, if you have enjoyed this episode, hit that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.